The forest floor was a carpet of decaying pine needles and wet earth. Every step Alex took sent a sharp snap of dry twigs echoing through the trees. He pushed aside a low-hanging branch, the leaves brushing against his arms, and kept his eyes locked on the faint line of the trail ahead. Ben followed 4 paces behind, his head down as he checked the needle of his compass. The air here was heavy, smelling of rot and damp moss. They had been walking for hours, and the woods had grown tighter with every mile. The trail narrowed until the dense thickets on either side pressed against their shoulders. Sunlight struggled to reach the ground, leaving the path in a perpetual dim twilight. Alex stopped for a moment, listening to the silence. It was not empty. It was waiting. He looked back at Ben, who was still scanning the compass, oblivious to the way the trees seemed to lean inward. The dense brush formed a wall of thorns and tangled vines, cutting them off from the world they had left behind. They moved forward again, deeper into the heart of the woods, where the shadows stretched long and the path finally vanished into the thick, unyielding undergrowth. The silence broke with a low, vibrating growl that seemed to rise from the very soil beneath their feet. Every bird in the canopy went still. Alex froze, his hand hovering over a branch, his head snapping toward the dense thicket to his left. A massive shape tore through the foliage, snapping saplings like dry kindling. It was a bear, its fur matted with mud and pine resin, eyes fixed on the movement in the trail. Alex did not look back to see if Ben had heard. He lunged at the nearest oak tree, his fingers digging into the rough, moss-covered bark. He hauled his weight upward, boots scrabbling against the trunk, finding purchase on a low limb. He scrambled higher, branch by branch, his breath coming in ragged, desperate gasps. He pulled himself onto a thick bough, 20 feet above the forest floor, his heart hammering against his ribs. Below, the trail was empty of movement. Ben stood motionless, his compass dangling from a strap, his gaze locked on the predator that now blocked the path. The bear turned its heavy head, sniffing the air, and took a lumbering step toward the spot where Ben stood. Ben felt the sudden absence of his companion like a physical blow to his chest. The bear shifted its weight, the ground beneath its massive paws vibrating with every movement. Ben remembered a survival tip he had read years ago, a desperate theory that felt flimsy against the reality of the predator. He dropped to the forest floor. The soil was cold and damp, pressing hard against his stomach. He curled his body into a tight, compact ball, pulling his knees toward his chest. He locked his hands behind his neck and tucked his chin down, exposing only the back of his head. He squeezed his eyes shut until his vision sparked with pressure. His muscles screamed for movement, for the instinct to scramble away, but he forced them into a rigid, agonizing stillness. The bear approached. He heard the heavy, rhythmic thud of claws digging deep furrows into the dirt. The sound stopped just feet away. Ben held his breath, his lungs burning, waiting for the impact. The air grew thick and heavy as the massive creature loomed over him. He felt the ground sink slightly under its immense weight. The predator was here, circling, testing the stillness of its prey. Ben did not move, did not twitch. His entire existence narrowed down to the single desperate hope. The bear stood directly over him. Ben could feel the heat radiating from the creature, a dense, suffocating warmth that seemed to fill the entire clearing. Then came the smell, a rank, musky odor of wet fur and raw earth that washed over him in waves. He felt a wet, leathery nose press firmly against his shoulder, nudging him with a force that threatened to break his rigid posture. Ben clamped his teeth together, his jaw aching from the effort to remain motionless. The bear moved closer. Its coarse fur brushed against his cheek, a scratchy, abrasive sensation that sent tremors through his skin. Then, the creature shifted, its snout hovering just inches from his ear. He heard a wet, raspy inhalation as the bear sniffed him, testing the stillness of the prey beneath it. Every instinct screamed for him to run, but he forced his muscles into a state of total, agonizing paralysis. The weight of the beast pressed down on the ground nearby, the earth groaning under its massive frame. Finally, the bear let out a sharp, wet snort that sprayed a fine mist onto the back of his neck. The heavy thud of paws receded, moving slowly back into the shadows. Minutes bled into the silence. Alex finally slid down the oak trunk, his boots hitting the dirt with a frantic, uneven rhythm. He hurried toward the clearing, his chest rising and falling in jagged bursts. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes scanning the perimeter before locking onto Ben. That was close, Alex stammered, his voice thin and cracking. He wiped a layer of cold sweat from his forehead with a trembling hand, trying to force a laugh. I saw the bear lean down. What did it whisper in your ear? Ben stood up slowly. He did not brush the dirt from his skin. He turned his head and locked his gaze onto Alex, his expression stripped of all warmth. The air between them grew sharp. He told me. Ben replied. Never travel with a friend who runs away when you need him most.